Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His mercy endures forever. Welcome to Faith Matters with Phillip Campbell, a Catholic variety program broadcasting on Good Shepherd Catholic Radio out here in lovely Jackson, Michigan. I am the aforementioned Phillip Campbell, your host and traveling companion for the next half hour. And as always, I'm so pleased that you are tuning in to be with us again for another episode of Faith Matters. A friend of mine that I've known for many years and just an all-around great guy, Noah Moerbeek. He is the North American preceptor of an order called the Poor Knights of Christ, and he's going to tell us all about the Poor Knights today. Noah has been a member of the Poor Knights of Christ for 12 years and solemnly professed for 9 years, and he lives in Charlestown, West Virginia. Noah, my brother, welcome to the program.
Thank you, brother. It is good to be here with you.
Well, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll start talking about your order. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, Noah.
I grew up in Orange County, California. Relatively boring, not boring, but I'm a cradle Catholic. Mm-hmm. My parents were always solicitous for my upbringing in the faith. Around the time of right before I turned 21 in 2008, I attended for the first time a Latin Mass. Mm-hmm. And that made a profound impact on me and my best friend at the time, who decided after going to his first Latin Mass the following week to become Catholic. And within a matter of months of that encounter, I found myself talking to this order that I found on the internet, as so many things are nowadays. And a number of friends, priests, and other wonderful people came into my life since that point. And one of those groups of people that I met were my close priestly friends here in West Virginia, the Canons Regular of the New Jerusalem, because they were temporarily in California, and the prior was assigned to be our chaplain to the Latin Mass a few months after I had just started going. And they encouraged me in my vocation, and they moved out here several years ago, and after I went out in 2015, I made the move from California out here to West Virginia because we both have something very important in common. We both say the same divine office, which is the 1962 divine office, and we both orders put a strong emphasis on saying it in common in choir. So I moved out here so that I could do that with them, and now another brother has moved out here recently, and another brother has moved out as well, and we are getting vocations here locally. So it is a very exciting, it's a kind of a new time of excitement personally for me in my life with the practice of my faith.
That is really exciting. And speaking of the order, the way you and I met, and gosh, it's been a long time now, but I had found an article online that said the Knights Templar had been reborn or reconstituted. The Knights Templar, of course, were a medieval military order founded at the time of the Crusades. And I found this article that said that the Templar Knights had been refounded in 1979, and then I was commenting on it, and then you and I, we don't need to go into the story of how we met, but you were a member, and we got into touch, and I guess I should ask, is that accurate? Like the Poor Knights of Christ, that was the name of the Templar Knights of the Middle Ages. Are you guys the modern Knights Templar?
We're the only ones that can make a claim on having a canonical standing that is strongly influenced by the ancient order. So the answer is both yes and no.
Right, because the actual Knights Templar were dissolved in 1314 or something like that.
Correct, by an ecumenical council, by a pope and an ecumenical council. So they very much that chapter of the history of the church was closed.
Right.
And what happened in 1979 was a group of Italians who were deeply involved in Catholic scouting decided, with the guidance of several cardinals and clerics, to try to find a rule of life that young men, upon completing Catholic scouting, could use as a means of guidance in the modern world. That is, to never abandon the life of service and service, sacrifice, and prayer. And they use the primitive Latin rule of the Templars, which is much more similar to the rule of St. Benedict than anything else, because it was composed in a somewhat strange way at the Council of Vienne and St. Bernard, and it was voted on section by section, but it was stripped down to exclude all the sections about, there's no longer guidance on how many horses you can own and
Right.
such like. And it is only 23 pages now. But the consistency which it shows in it, the spirit of the ancient order with what we are aiming for today, means that really we are the only modern approved Templar group with any type of standing, and who sees the Knights more as a guide for practical living, whether it's a political desire to say bombastic things about retaking the Holy Land, or
Right.
people want to just get together and put on some habits and drink some brews.
You're trying to say that that this is really about practical living, not about cosplaying crusaders or something?
Correct. People get all these daydreams about swinging a sword nowadays, and they forget that the ancient brotherhood sang to the divine office and choir, abstained from meats on certain days, sat in silence, read scripture, strictly practiced chastity. They even observed strictness when it came to what recreations they engaged in.
Right.
They spent time with other men who were deeply committed to the things that they were committed to. And then at any given time, 2/3 to 3/4 of the order were back in Europe working on farms to pay for the military campaigns in the Holy Land. So that is the life which we are trying to live out. And more broadly as well, the various laws of chivalry as outlined by people like Blessed Raymond Lull. That's the spirituality of the order. So I do think it's a good thing that so many people feel drawn to the Knights and are looking. They just haven't found us yet.
Right. Well, that's what I'm hoping to help with, because I've been deeply impressed by your order in the years that I've known about it. But speaking of the military orders, now, of course, the military orders in the time of the Crusades, they lived, they had a communal life and the interior life and the prayer life of monks. In the Middle Ages, the military orders lived an active life. And I guess, you and I know, but I think our listeners might not know, this is, the Poor Knights are not a religious order in the sense that you're cloistered or withdrawn from the world. You guys are you guys live active lives, active in the world. You still have day jobs. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So within the church, there are associations, and then there are orders.
Yep.
And the order of St. Benedict, the Carmelite order.
Sure.
Those are orders. And then there are those associations of the faithful, and these are a lot more broad. And in fact, in today's world, even Augustinian monks, like a new Augustinian order, would be an association of the faithful. They would not be, if they had something different about them than the ancient order, they would be a new association of the faithful. Now, public orders, like let's say you were a group of priests and you were getting together, they have very specific things under the Code of Canon Law that they must do as public associations of the faithful.
Right.
And then there are this other group, and that's what we are. We are a private association of the faithful. Now, that can be made up of laity. It can be made up of clerics. They can have vows. They cannot have vows. They can wear habits. They cannot wear habits. But the goal of them is a perfect Christian life, public worship, and other apostolic works. So once any group, now, if tomorrow you and your friend got together, wrote up how you two were going to live, and then decided to live that way, you could truly call yourself a private association. You just couldn't call yourself a Catholic private association until you went to your bishop and got a formal decree recognizing you as having a juridic personality. And that's done after they review your rule, and they interview the members, and they make sure that you're not nutty nut bars.
Right.
Which, by the way, I mean, I love nutty nut bars, and many saints were definitely a false note throughout history. But there might be a long period of trial before you get that approval. But eventually, when the approval comes through, you are truly recognized as a Catholic private association of the faithful, and your constitutions, rules, and other things are recognized through the entire Catholic Church, even if, like in our case, our rule was approved by Archbishop Bonicelli, the Archbishop of Siena, in 1990, because that is where our headquarters is, in the Archdiocese of Siena. And then our constitutions were approved shortly thereafter, but then they were approved, certain revisions were done to them in 2011, which were approved by the new, at that time, the Archbishop of Siena.
Well, let me ask you this. Given that that you're an association of the faithful, that anybody who wants to, live this lifestyle, put themselves under the rule, can investigate and join. What makes your order different from, say, like there's lots of third orders out there, third order Franciscans, third order Carmelites, or just associations like the Knights of Columbus. What do you think makes the Poor Knights stand out?
What makes the Poor Knights stand out is that, well, first, we are the first order. So third orders are always dependent upon the first order in whatever group they're with.
Right.
And so you see these tremendous constraints that are put upon third order members. They're not allowed to do any works. They're half the time not even allowed to organize in the name of the order.
Mm-hmm.
And even worse, I feel, and maybe a priest might get defensive, third orders, from what I've seen, baby their members. They're so concerned about giving them so much. They're made for the broadest possible audience of elderly to young people, and they all practically apologize to you for making you say a little bit of the liturgy of the hours and maybe doing some spiritual reading.
So, because the Poor Knights are the first order, you're getting the whole package, so to speak.
Correct. You also get the responsibilities.
Right.
So we have a third order. Those are called Knights of Devotion. Those are the Oblates, and they don't have the responsibilities. Next is we genuinely and truly take vows.
Tell us about the vows. What vows does a Poor Knight take?
Poor Knight takes 4 vows. He takes a vow of obedience obedience and unscrupulous respect to the rule of the Poor Knights of Christ and the constitutions, and to the Grand Master and all of his successors and his agents. Mm-hmm. That he takes a vow of chastity according to his state in life, although this is very important because a knight who violates his marriage vow in some way, for example, initiating a divorce, it would simply not be possible for him to continue. So it would be grounds then for dismissal of breaking his vow there. Next is we take a vow of detachment, since we can't share property in common. Are you ready and willing to detach yourself from the goods of the world for the benefit of others and for your own sanctification, to thus become a poor knight of Christ? And then finally, are you willing to be a defender of the rights of God, first of all, by your courageous witness to your Catholic, Apostolic, and Roman faith in all circumstances? Now, that last one is really the heart of the order. The ancient knights took a fourth vow to never retreat in battle.
Right.
The odds had to be 3-1, and they had to be ordered to retreat. To retreat without such a command, when the odds weren't so great against you, was to incur tremendous penalties depending upon one's status in the order. If he was a professed knight, it could lead to dismissal or being stripped of the habit and being forced to sleep outside on the ground for a very long period of time and things of that sort.
Right.
But it's important that we realize that in moral theology, we're never allowed to apostatize. We're never allowed to deny our faith. However, we can, without sin, sometimes hide our faith if by revealing our belief, our faith, we would incur some type of disproportionate harm to ourselves. But because of our vow that in all circumstances, we have to not only be a courageous witness, but even a defender of the right of God. It creates a new profession of faith. It moves the line up.
Right. It's like a evangelical reinterpretation of the old medieval law of never retreating.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, and you also have a prayer obligation every day. You say, I can't remember what it is. You can clarify, but you say the Divine Office every day.
Correct. So we have to say the 1962 Divine Office in Latin, all the hours save matins.
Right.
Now, there is an exception in the rule itself that states if it's not possible, we're bound to a smaller observance. The Grand Master, who is the chief executive of the order, though, has outlined that these exceptions are only in the event of work during the period that a canonical hour would be normally done or travel. It is binding on us that we arrange our days in such a way that we can say the Divine Office. We are also bound to go to communion as frequently as possible. The rule specifies we must confess at least once a month, although the Grand Master's prerogative is once every 2 weeks. And we're all bound to mental prayer at the beginning of the day based on the General Council of 2003. And then, we have assigned, when you get into the rule, at one point it says that we are to make no offerings except day and night, basically waiting for the Lord until we be compared with the wisest of prophets. That creates quite a restriction on what one does with their free time, because the rule envisions us retreating from the world and seeking God in quiet prayer and solitude.
Well, I think that
from others.
Yeah, I think the image that emerges here, and I've read the rule before and studied a bit, is that it's not just like another club or association that you join or get involved with and go do something once a month. I mean, this really gives you a daily habit of life that if you're a member of the order that you're expected to form your life to, and that forms in you this habit of daily mental prayer, of detachment from the world, of things like that. So it's a lot more intense and committed than just if you were to say I'm joining this third order and we meet once, on the third Sunday of the month for an hour, or I've got a Knights of Columbus meeting, on this week or something like that. It's a very daily commitment that you guys are actually structuring your whole daily lives around, and that really speaks to the level of the commitment. And like you said, you're actually taking vows. So I think I was just answering my own question. I was just going to ask you, and maybe you can speak to this. My last question, I was going to say, gosh, Noah, this sounds like a lot of work. Why shouldn't I just be a devout layman? Why would somebody want to submit their life to this rule?
Because we don't want to be swallowed up into the belly of the beast like Jonah.
Right.
This calling comes from God. And once a person is called, and this is, I think, one of the reasons why you're seeing in the world the affinity for the Templars, the affinity for Christian knighthood emerging, is that God is moving people, maybe not necessarily in the direction of our brotherhood explicitly, though sometimes, but there is when God stirred up the Maccabees, when he stirred up the ancient brotherhood of the Knights Templar, there's a great letter between the Knights Templar, the head of it, who I forgot his name, but he always signed his name the Peccator, and he wrote to Saint Bruno of the Carthusians.
The Peccator meaning the sinner in Latin.
The sinner, yeah. And he wrote to him about their way of life. And modern scholars who don't understand, I think, the Templars, thought that they were trying to reconciling being men of violence, right, while praying. And I laughed at that because they were already men of violence. They were all knights before they became the Templars. And I went, no, they were dealing with the tension that exists between trying to be a man of war and trying to do the full life of the monk, and how grating that is when you look at the commitment of both.
Yeah.
And men today are feeling drawn to those commitments. Now, whether or not this is because they want to do it for the sake of the coming of the kingdom of God, because of the number of their sins, because of their love for God, those are all reasons why men might feel called to join our order, but it is the heart of it is the heart of the order to want to fight.
Well, let's put it this way. It's kind of like this. You wonder, like, why do men join the Marines, right? The Marine training is notoriously more difficult and rigorous than any other military branch, right? Whenever there's a conflict, the Marines are the first one on the ground. They get the heaviest casualties. Why do people sign up for that? And I think what you're speaking to is that among Catholic men, and really amongst any a person in this any Catholic in this world today that takes their faith seriously, there's a desire to be challenged. I think because a lot of things in the modern world have made things too easy, too convenient, and I think we are drawn to those ancient examples of fortitude and courage and struggle, and to me that's what the rule that you are speaking to today exemplifies, that old spirit of struggle, of doing something great, of the virtue of magnanimity, being great-souled, and something that challenges people, that isn't just easy and convenient and it's not an app. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, and I think it speaks to this reality in our faith.
Yeah.
You cannot be saved unless you love God with your whole heart and seek Him with your whole heart. And there is no such thing as the imitation of Christ says, right? One cannot have two paradises, one on earth and one in the next.
Right.
Right? And so that would be, there is no way that anybody listening now can find some easy way when you look at it from afar, right? When you look at it from afar, it looks difficult. But when we take our vows and the scapular is put on our heads, that's admonition, right, of like, my burden is sweet and my yoke is light.
I was just thinking of that verse.
Right, and so once you're in the fight, and that's the whole point of joining the brotherhood, is to find brothers to fight with, to find brothers who will help form you, and to find brothers who hopefully are veterans and who have been strugglers for years, to help you with the problems that arise in being a devout lay man in today's world. And not to make a little plug, but we do have a YouTube channel, and our formation, we do live stream our formation, and there's also a number of other talks and
tell us how we can find you on the internet and on YouTube.
Sure. Our preceptory's website is militiatempli.net. And our YouTube channel, if you just type in the Poor Knights of Christ, we should be the first channel that comes up. But if you're looking for some more information on the spirituality of the order, please take a look at those two resources.
My guest has been Dom Noah Moerbeek, the North American preceptor of the Poor Knights of Christ. Noah, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, brother. Talk to you again soon.
Yep. So that was Noah talking to us about the poor knights of Christ, and I don't know, really speaking to that desire, I think, for a challenge in one's spiritual life. You know, the way of the modern world today is convenience, and that's not a terrible thing. I mean, we like convenience. I like being able to go to the dentist when I have a toothache, right, and get it taken care of that day. I like that there's things right on my phone. I like that I don't have to get a gigantic map out like I did when I was young and unfold it and plot my route. I like GPS. So there's a lot of convenience with the modern world, but that convenience, nothing comes without a cost, right? You have things that make life easier, make things more convenient, but also we can lose something. We can lose something by having things too easy. We can lose a sense of accomplishment that comes when you overcome a challenge, when you struggle through something. And I think people today in the church are looking for something that challenges them, a kind of spirituality or way of life that challenges them and helps them grow as a person, helps them grow in love of God. So until next time, my friends, this has been Faith Matters with Phillip Campbell. May the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. God bless.